Good morning, Doug here from the Hundredfold Journey. Thanks again for joining us on this Sundays with Doug, where we're coming alongside of you and we're on this journey together to learn about ourselves. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna invite somebody else that just wanted to join. Where we're on this journey together, we're rewiring our brain, building new habits, and create a new identity. Because a hundredfold is about a group of people that are looking to find their true identity, and by doing so, finding God's true identity. And you do have a choice whether you want to look or not. So as we've been sharing each and every week, we are working on memorizing, applying, and meditating upon 10 truths, because these truths were true for Jesus, therefore they're true for you. For example, Jesus always had an attitude of gratitude. He was always in the right place at the right time. For those that are online, is there a person that maybe had an experience this week with the 10 truth that they would like to share? Anybody? Oh. And if not, I've got one. I had some work done on my car, and I had to take it into the shop. And the gentleman that was helping me, well, basically I went there and I had to make an appointment. And what was interesting is he was looking at the wrong calendar. So he was looking at April and said my appointment was April 9th. Actually, it was the 6th, but he was actually looking at April, but he thought it was March, which ended up being, Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday of the week. And basically he says, well, yeah, why don't you come back next Wednesday? But he was thinking it was April, but he was looking at the April calendar, but he told me March. So anyways, I was able to get an appointment, even though they were like a month out in the month of March. And basically I waited 3 or 4 days. And I ended up being the first appointment, and I got there and he was able to work on my car with no problem. So I just thought it was interesting. I was always at the right place at the right time. Even though this guy made a mistake, it was to my advantage and I was able to get my car done. So anyways, just a kind of unique, creative situation, how it all worked out. So that was my experience with the 10
I've,
truths, always being
I've
at the
got
right
one.
place at the right time.
I've got a quick one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, just this week, I went to a buddy's house, and they really needed their house cleaned because their landlords were going to kick them out. And the first thing I do is I get in there, and oh my gosh, it's like the biggest mess in the world. And I'm really frustrated at first because I'm like, wow, like how can I do this? Especially for free. And as I started cleaning and getting things done, within a few hours, the whole house was spotless clean. And I look back on it and I go, if I just had that positive thinking in the beginning, what would have been the terrible thing that happened, And I felt after I'd done that work, I just felt like kind of in a negative space. But then I remember the 10 truths and how, circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. And that I was there also being God to somebody that at that moment helping them clean their house, so their landlords don't kick them out. And sometimes I forget, like, it's not just about me. It's not all about me and what, oh, it's hard work, I'm doing this for free. Then you're thinking in your head, well, I should get something out of that. I should gain something out of that in return. But God doesn't go, oh, I am doing this because I'm hoping I'll have a good experience through this person. I'm hoping that if I give them everlasting love, that I can experience a good life. That's not how God works, and I have to remember God does everything out of unconditional love. Everything he does is out of the pure love. He never goes, oh, well, I just experienced a great life through this person and I helped their life become better. God doesn't do that. All he says is, I love you. I will always love you. And so in my heart, after I did that job, I said, you know what? I love you. I will always love you. So just a good change of mindset and heart that, when we do something for others, we should do it out of unconditional love and not out of, oh, we need to gain something back.
Yes.
Because
No,
then you're saying, oh, well, I don't have enough. I don't have, because I'm doing this for somebody else. I don't have enough. I need something more back, and that kind of stunts your growth.
yes. Yeah, that's very good, Michael. You preached a whole sermon right there. It basically describes our true identity, and that when we understand that we're the bride and that we have everything, then it comes from an overflow of who we are, and we don't expect anything in return because you already have everything, right? So yeah, very, very good, Michael. Thanks for sharing that. And you were definitely God to someone today. And God is not an if-then God. If I do this, then you will do that, right? It's not that arrangement. It's always blessings. It's pouring out of blessings upon us. We are in a series called The Heart of a Hundredfold. We have gone through many different sessions talking about where the dwelling place of God, the seed and the sower, and different aspects of what a hundredfold is. But as far as getting down to the heart of a hundredfold and what it's truly about, that's what we're going to be doing in this series. And the very first thing that a hundredfold is all about is our identity. And even in our statement, where we find our true identity, when we do that, then we find God's true identity. So identity is key. And this is actually part B. I should probably make that change. Last week, we covered kind of an introduction, and this week we're continuing referencing the bride. This is my true identity. This is who we are. How do we come about to understand that this truly is our identity? How do we get our minds around the fact that this is who we are? And that's what we're going to be talking about, is some of the, call it, obstacles, the stinky thinking, the renewing of our mind that needs to take place in order for us to agree with God's opinion of us, because that's exactly what this is. This is the way God views us. But what are my roadblocks to believing this? So I'm just going to do a quick summary of what we covered last week. If you missed last week's session, I will put the link down below so that you can watch that and then watch this. But this is part 2. And what we talked about is, the negative definitions that we have, definitions that religion has on us, others have on us, my own personal view, but then ultimately the view that we should have, as far as the definition, is God's view of me. And then how does true transformation occur? It occurs because of God's love. And Michael, you described that perfectly. It's continually being poured out upon us. And when we understand that love, it then has to penetrate, it has to break through so that we can change. And the way that love breaks through is through truth about who we are, truth about our true identity, not other people's definitions, not religion's definitions, but God's definition. And these I'll call them truth bombs. The way the truth bombs break through is when we're ready to receive it. So it comes by humility. So you can see God's love is continually being poured out. God's truth is continually being poured out. Humility opens me to God's love and God's truth, which then transforms my soul. Without humility, without saying, God, please open my mind, open my heart to the truth of who I am. If I think I've got all the answers and I'm stubborn and it's not going to happen, similar to the scribes and Pharisees back in Jesus' days, they thought they had, God locked in. They had all the truth. They didn't need any more truth, but they did. So they weren't humble enough to receive it. Hence, their lives were not transformed. And then, the description is about a butterfly where there's true transformation. When the caterpillar basically says, all right, I'm done walking on the ground and having this stinky thinking, and just basically, living in the limitations of this life. It's time for a transformation. And that's where the caterpillar transforms itself by dying. The caterpillar actually dies and then resurrects and becomes a caterpillar. And that is done again through humility. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. The old is past, behold, new has come. And guess what, guys? We are in Christ. So we are a new creation. We're no longer a caterpillar, but a butterfly. But guess what? Our thinking and our environment around us reminds us, well, you were a caterpillar. You never changed. You're not a butterfly. Who says that you can fly? Who says that you can be a butterfly? So we have to change our thought process. We have to change our stinky thinking. But how does that occur? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, is how we remind ourselves that we are a butterfly, that we are the bride. And it comes through transformation of changing the way we're thinking. Transformation is surrendering. Sorry, somebody just chimed in. Hey, David, good morning. Transformation is surrendering to the emotion and pain of negative beliefs. So if you look at the first container, it's full, right? It's full of negative beliefs and habits and hangups and stinky thinking. And what we have to do is basically get that stuff out of us and have the humility to understand that you don't have it all and that you need to be filled with God's truth. So really what ends up happening is you push out the old limiting beliefs, and then you fill it up with the true identity, which is God's truth. All right. So this is all kind of a summary of what we talked about last week. I know I went through it rather quickly, but again, please watch last week's video that I went into this a lot more detail. All right. So what prevents us from doing this? What prevents us from removing the old limiting beliefs and filling us with God's true identity, our true identity and God's truth? And the way I'd like to describe this is that we are a three-part being. There's a body, soul, and spirit, which also can be described as the facade, a damaged self, and the real self. And we'll get into the details of the definitions of each one of those. But the way you can kind of think of it is like an egg. It takes a crack to open it up to get on the inside. And the inside is where our real self is, right? It's where the yolk is. It's where life is. The yellow part is where life is, and that's where our true self is. That crack is God's truth, allowing it to break through and transform who you really are by God's love, right? So if you take a look at the egg, right, it comes in three parts. It has the hard shell, it has the egg white, and then the yolk, right? So the way we can look at ourselves is that you are the hard shell on the outside, and that's a facade. It's not who you really are. It's what you present to the outside world. And it's hard, but it's also brittle. It does take a little bit to crack the egg, but it takes a lot of truth, the truth bomb, to break through, break through that. And then the egg white is the damaged self. And then again, the yolk is the real self. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on to what each one of these represents. Okay. But think of yourself as this three-part being, right? The outer shell, the inner self, and then the real self. Notice that the inside is soft and fluid. It's malleable, it's flexible, right? It moves around, it's free flowing. And that's the way that God has designed us to be, is malleable, flexible, I should have added the word humble, because our truest self, when we're humble, we can change. But the outside is hard, it's rigid, it's not easily cracked, which brings confusion and stops you from getting clarity on how the damage was created. When you crack open the facade and feel the feelings, healing can come. So when you understand the damaged self and how that came about, then you can transform yourself, and the real self starts to grow inside of you when you understand your true identity. Okay, but it's the facade that stops the truth from getting through. And let me describe that. Before we do that, so this is a question for those that are online. What truth or truths cracked your shell? What truth broke through for you, which brought transformation? So I know each of us have a lot of history with religion or with stinky thinking, our beliefs that we had, which were inaccurate. But what truth actually cracked your shell that exposed the inside as to who you truly are? And I'm wondering if you guys can share maybe some examples of what broke through for you.
Well, what broke free for me was I used to be so scared of the heaven and hell concept, to the point where I felt like I was forced into, going to church or reading the Bible, things that I didn't really want to do. At the time, the truth broke free is that where I'm at and who I am right in this moment, at this moment in time, is enough for God. Is enough for God to experience it. There, and the truth for enough, that I don't need all this other stuff, all these other, religion, or going to church on time, or getting a Bible study, that in this moment, right in this second that I breathe, that this is enough for God, and that we're experiencing this together. And that's the truth that really cracked my shell of, hey, guess what, Michael? I'm experiencing this with you, and there's no way around it. And I'm not expecting you to wake up at 6 a.m. and start reading your Bible. I expect you just to love, know that you're loved, and live a love life.
Love it. Yep. So great illustration of that crack. It broke through and then was able to penetrate, and then you're able to see your true self. Very good. Anybody else?
As for myself, man, I would say, when it cracked for me was when that day at work on a Saturday, when I realized Jesus was real. That's the day everything cracked for me. And since then, it's been I don't know, I'd say my yoke is running everywhere in just blessings of faith, of knowing that if he can make me see in that one day, that he has always been there, and that, to me, that made the transformation over to getting baptized, understanding my baptism at the time, at this particular time. The other two times I was baptized, I didn't really know why I was doing it. I thought it'd be closer to God, whatever, just doing what the motions were.
So Lonnie, that breakthrough that you said, you found out that God is real. What was the truth that broke through for you? What was it that turned the lights on, if you will?
I don't know. In some senses, I think it's more that I stopped believing in all the religions and what everybody was telling me, and listening to myself on the inside of what I was being told. And it just so happened that when I was at work all the time, I was always listening to the Bible, because I understand better when I hear it than when I read it. So I would listen to it all day long, all the New Testament, starting from beginning to end. That's where I just think a lot of things that I started hearing in there became more real with what I was actually seeing, with what was going on around me, and what I was hearing from others.
So in a sense, it clicked.
It just added a blue. It was a click.
Right. So that's cool, because that describes that what we talked about here, right? That God's love is constantly flowing. God's truth is constantly flowing. It's our humility that basically says, I'm willing to listen. I need to listen, because I realized this life isn't the way it's supposed to be. And then that allowed that crack to come through, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, this is real, and God is real. So yeah, that perfectly illustrates that. Very, very good. But it's the humility of our hearts that says, I need to be open to hearing God's truth, because I don't have the truth. I don't know what it is.
Well, there was something that I was always hearing too, that always, and to this day, it still sticks in my mind. And to me, it's a lot about integrity. Knowing that whatever I do, I don't need anybody else to see what I'm doing to prove that I'm doing better.
Mm.
The only is do what I am doing, what God has me doing, follow that path of breadcrumb trail.
Yeah.
But more of, he already knows what I'm doing. And if anything I need to prove to is him, not anybody else in this world, you know, as long as and I don't really have to prove to him. I don't have to go and voice about, oh, I just went and dumped the garbage, you know, or hey, I just went and vacuumed out this car, you know. I don't need everybody to know those things, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's more of what I'm getting from my transformation is that God knows what I'm doing. He sees what I'm doing. And I'm thankful for that transformation, because I used to be that guy that, look, I did this, you know, but I never have to, you know, and that's because the way of people I was around, you know. So hearing that kind of stuff, you know, it's like, here, I'm the one who did this, you know. I just learned that I don't have to take credit for a lot of things anymore. You know, it's not my business.
Very good. Very good.
You know, I would add to that. That's a really good point. You know, the thing is I think us as human beings by nature, we naturally typically need to feel affirmation, to feel good about what we're doing. I mean, it's just a natural instinct. I think we would all agree. But I would certainly agree with you that integrity and having those things be part of your life, and for me, having the doing the things that are right, and having the actions and living the life of this integrity that we're talking about, and that God has designed us to be already, really speaks to myself about what I'm doing. And you're right, we don't have to prove to God that we will do these things, that we'll live this life. But guess what? When we prove it to ourselves, and not for the reason of doing it for others, or for the reason of other people recognize it, for me, that's the most key important thing for me, is to do them without expectation of something in return, or being noticed that I'm doing it. Because the most fulfilling thing for me is just doing it and seeing myself that I did it. Because at the end of the day, knowing that I didn't want anything back, but that I didn't care whether people saw it and approved of it or not, that my God and myself saw it and knows that I did the right thing. That's what's fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
And when you say fulfilling, you know that word that hit me for yesterday. I got a phone call out of the blue from my neighbor. He's like, hey, Lonnie, what are you doing? I go, oh, man, just chilling. You know, the same thing every day. Nothing is new, brother. And he goes, well, hey, how would you like to come down and, you know, I'm going to barbecue up some meat, you know, we'll have some tacos or whatever, throw it together and just chill, relax. Guy's dad came over, but I wasn't going to go. I was like, yeah, man, I'll just rather stay in bed. I actually fulfilled something within myself of doing something that I normally don't do. I ended up going down there, and I actually got to really relax in peace with this guy, you know, and have a good conversation, laughed at some TV. I haven't been able to been so relaxed of being somewhere. And that was fulfilling to me, knowing that there's a lot of good folks out here that do things just because they care. It's from their heart, it's from their nature, it's natural. And, you know, seeing this guy again interact with his dad the way he does, you know, is just amazing.
Yeah. So Lonnie, I think what I'm hearing too is allowing other people to help you, because sometimes we have the facade, and we'll be talking about this, but we have the facade. No, I'm okay, and you know, I'm strong enough, and I don't need your help. I know that's not what you were saying, but you know, maybe subconsciously there was a little bit of that. So just allowing us to be humble enough to say, yeah, you know, I would love for you to take care of me, and you know, have this barbecue and have this time together. So
Well, it was in that aspect because in the beginning I did tell them, I was like, hey, look, man, I don't have the funds to, to roll in with you guys right now,
Yeah.
And he's like, man, Lonnie, don't even worry about it. Just bring your butt down here, man, and let's,
Good.
let's
Yeah.
eat. So, it is learning to humble because I'm not used to being invited to somewhere.
Right.
And when I do, I don't know what to do. It's
Yep.
like, do I bring this? Do I housewarming this, or what is it?
Right.
So all that stuff's new to me, but it's
Yep.
kind of cool because it is humbling me, and I'm seeing different things in other people in the way to to really roll with things too now. And like I said, that's that integrity. And this guy, he doesn't do it to be seen by God. He already knows God sees him. You know what I mean? But the character that he has comes through God and from God and through him, and it shows how it's just so simple to be nicer to people. I mean, the guy got excited. He got a new motorcycle. Sorry, real quick on this one. He got a new motorcycle. He was showing it off to his girlfriend. She got on the bike, left the key in there dead in his battery, and he hasn't been able to ride it.
Oh no.
So yesterday I had brought down my jumper. I got a little mini jumper and jumped his bike. This kid, man, he became a 12-year-old again.
There you go.
He was
Love
so
it.
excited.
So you without knowing it, you were God to him that day because you had the right you had the right equipment for what was needed.
So it makes, to me, like how Mike is saying, for fulfillment, yeah, it's, I felt more joyful fulfilling something that at the least I can do. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that's great.
it feels good. Fulfillment feels better than, oh, I did this for you. You need to do something for me.
Yep.
Well, guys,
So-
take a look at the difference between when you do something for somebody and you like call them to see, how they're doing and see if it helped them. And it's almost like you're wanting like recognition for it. And look at how you feel. You might feel good about what you did, but now compare that same type of situation where you do something for somebody for the reason of integrity or whatever it is that's driving you to do that. And then you go home and you just think about what you did, not wanting recognition, not caring about whether people saw it or not. And then just compare the difference, because for me, there's huge, I mean, absolutely amazing, how shall I say, satisfaction in the unseen, things that you do for people, the things that are driven by the Spirit of God, and then you just get to sit back and enjoy the inner feeling that's given to you that you did something for somebody, or whether even if it's for yourself. I mean, just in the eyes of integrity of doing something during the day, that you gave back a wallet you found or whatever, not because it was in front of somebody or to show your girlfriend or show somebody you did it. The fact that you did it and walked away and didn't ask anybody for any recognition, that feeling to me is paramount in this whole scenario.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So as we dig it a little bit deeper, right? So we're taking that egg illustration and kind of putting some definitions here. So the facade self is basically the masks that we wear. It's I don't need any help. I'm strong enough. All sorts of different masks that we wear that we put on because that's who we think we should be. And that's the facade that's on the outside. And then the damaged self, and then the real self. So think of that black circle, if you will, being that eggshell, that barrier, the damaged self being the white, and the real self being the yolk. So as far as different masks that we wear, I think we've touched on maybe a couple of them, but what other masks, what other facades do we present to other people that build a barrier between who we truly are on the inside versus what the world sees on the outside?
I think Michael and really everybody that's been talking today has talked very much to this very point. And it kind of comes down to, what is it that we're doing in and of ourselves, in our actions in our day-to-day, that is driven with a motivation of self-recognition, or what is not being done with humility, like you were saying. And so when we target in our daily lives actions that are driven by something of a selfish nature, like Mike was talking about selflessness, and you know, it seems like we're putting up a mask or a facade that might be what we want people to see us as, right? Like if we're doing things for selfish reasons, it might just be for selfish recognition of what we are or what we're trying to be or what we think people should look upon us as.
And we do that because why? What's the motivation?
Why do we do that? Is that a rhetorical question? I don't know. I think it's in our nature. I think we in a lot of cases we need recognition. You know, we don't want shame. We want to feel good about ourselves, and in that being a natural feeling that we want, what is it we're striving for? A lot of times it's for others to recognize us for whatever it is, whether we're something we're doing or who we believe ourselves to be, or maybe we look up to somebody. Maybe it's somebody that we want to, you know, be like. And that happens, right? We all have in our lives people we look up to. Well, what is the nature of that person we look up to? Is it a kid at school that can hit a home run, or is it Jesus? Is it something of humility, or is it something of arrogance? There's a big difference between the two, right? I mean, having a humble state of being and integrity, like Michael was saying, I've found, and I think we do over time in our years. I mean, I'm over 50. I mean, over time you start realizing that, you know, this world is made up of just a lot of darkness. And so when we see things as a youth that we might want to make ourselves like or impersonate, sometimes we put on these masks, or we put on this facade that we want to be, or we want to act like this person, or maybe it's the movies, the media that we live by, you know, watching growing up as a youth. I mean, we see it every day, right? I'm not trying to talk a lot here, but you know, there's a lot of conversation around this topic, and humility really does chime on any front as to being a point of breaking down that facade that we might put up in any given day or moment that could really negatively impact our lives and other people's lives. Or we could turn it the other way and choose humility and choose to live Christ-like and choose to let that inner God in us, you know, radiate around us. And so how do we choose to live? I mean, I know how I'm going to choose to live.
Yeah. So the question is how are we living? And this facade that we've built up around us to protect us so that we don't get hurt is the masks that we wear. And how do we break through those? And here's some of the you know, the ones, and we can talk through these, is, you know, sometimes we're fake, right? Where we're fake that we're happy, and oh yeah, you know, how's your day going? Oh, it's terrific, you know, life is amazing and life is so good. But inside you're hurting, and you don't want to look a certain way to other people, so you fake that you're happy. You know, another one is rebelling. You know, you've got this facade on the outside, and we can all remember you know, teenage years where you know, you got the boy or the girl that's rebelling and they're doing crazy things. A lot of that is because they're hurting on the inside, but the facade on the outside is, well, they're just rebellious, and you know, they're just that's just who they are. But that's the mask that they're wearing. They're covering their damaged self because something happened. You know, a belief that they have about themselves is contrary to who they really are. And the way it reveals itself is through a mask, right? And they rebel. You know, all of these, you know, self-assured, you know, you're confident, you show that you're confident in what you do, but it's a facade. Inside you're thinking, you know, man, I'm not good enough. So these are all kind of the masks that we wear and the facades that we have. You know, I think of, you know, like models. You know, you read through the magazines or you see it, and you see these models that are in these amazing outfits, and you think, oh, they've got their life together, because on the outside they look like they have it together. That's the facade. That's that barrier to the inside. Does that make
And I
sense?
think Yeah, it does. You know, I think facades come in all kinds of different manners. Like,
Yes, agreed.
because, for example, you know, and I think it comes from our lining up growing up, what we see, what we come across, what has happened, what we've been shown. But for the most part, like, I can say even for myself that, you know, I put up a lot of facades when I'm applying for a job, knowing that I'm not going to be able to get that job, but I'm putting on a different face or a different attitude. But then I found myself after being at that job. I didn't even really like the job, but I put on this facade to get the job,
Mhm.
you know. And it wasn't, like I said, until when you know, that Saturday at work, which changed everything for me. And I started truck driving within a month after that of quitting. I didn't have to put a facade on when I was going to school to be who I was. I was just like everybody in that classroom. We all had a different background, but we were there for one common goal, to get our license, to move forward. And it's the first time that I never really had to put a facade at a job in my
Oh,
life.
wow.
I never had to, because other jobs I'd put up, oh yeah, I'm Mexican. Oh, can you speak Spanish? No. You know, or I'm white, or I'm Caucasian, or I'm other. You know, I got tired of answering those questions because I had to put a facade on with it. And I see to now being the real self is knowing that I qualify for a job. I don't have to put a facade on for it. If they want me, they want me. If they don't, they don't. It doesn't matter. Now I look at it, it's your loss. I can move forward.
Yep.
You know. However, before I used to get really upset, like I would rebel against, you know, someone. Why ain't you hiring me?
Yeah.
You know, but I see that we can put facades on into anything in this world, and that's where to me, what I learned from classes I've taken, it still comes back down to integrity. If you have that integrity, you don't have to put a facade on. You don't have to put another mask on. You just live your life, go through what you know, following God, and do what you need. And it sounds easier said than done.
Yep.
You know, but I still in the position I'm at. Like, I got mind boggled this last week because the frustration of what's going on. But I found that I'm gonna say this real quick because I didn't say it in the beginning. I actually found myself getting frustrated this week because of dealing with the workman's comp and, you know, being misled and all that. So I come to find that somehow God stopped me and he told me to breathe. And
Just
so
while you were on the phone or something, or
down to the office, my office here. Well, anyway, two things. I'm trying to get, I'll throw my statement out there. I'm trying to get my rent taken care of through the rent relief thing that I had for the COVID. They're lagging on it at my apartment complex. So I'm frustrated. I'm getting like I feel the old me coming on. Like I'm about to go in there and just rip you guys, man, because I've been doing my due diligence and you guys aren't. But there's no blame to them. And then onto it, workman's comp. So yes, on Friday, I decided to just get up and go to my doctor's office because I couldn't get a hold of him on the phone.
so Lonnie, sorry for interrupting, but we're talking about facades,
Right.
right?
Long
So
story
what
short,
facade did you present to
long
these
story
people?
short, to these people, the facade I put on was a happy face.
Yeah.
And I was self-assured with what I was gonna say. But
Even though inside,
I was just like, you know, I really want to say what I want to say.
Yeah.
But that isn't the real me. I needed to humble myself and I needed to just breathe like God was saying. And
All right. So Lonnie, perfect example. All right. So let's talk through that, because this is really the point of a lot of this. Is you felt you needed to put on a facade that said that I'm in control and I'm happy, right? Because you were trying to control the external and the way people viewed you. But truly on the inside, who your real self is you're not that. In fact, you don't need to be a facade, because who you are, you're the bride. All your needs are constantly met, right? You're the bride, you have everything that you need. but there was a fear about not knowing that, or thinking you don't have all of that because of your damaged self. So there was an experience that you've had, and I know some of your history, Lonnie, that you have some history where you've been burned and you've been hurt and et cetera, et cetera. So you have this damaged self that has this history of being damaged. Therefore, you need to have that facade to protect yourself so you don't get hurt again. But on the inside, there's this true identity. And this is where we're trying to find our true identity. On the inside, neither one of those are true. Our facade is not true. Our damaged self is true because of those experiences, but we're interpreting them through the scene and through our history, and not through our true identity and who we truly are, because we've always been that bride. We just haven't chosen to remember it. So what ends up happening then is, because of the damaged self and because of the facade, and sorry, Milani, using your example, but there's thousands of examples out there, but you felt you needed to put a facade on of being happy and in control. And to you, it seemed as being fake, but in reality, that's who you really are. You are a happy person on the inside because that's the way God designed you and made you. But it needs to filter out all this damaged self and facade self. That's where we go back to this illustration, right? We need to get rid of those limiting beliefs and fill it up with our true identity, so that when you do make that phone call, there's no fear, there's no facade that you need to put forth. It's just who you are, right? It just comes out easily and naturally.
The crazy thing is that God created our minds, our brains, to be so advanced yet so simple. And when we constantly think and allow thoughts, like, for real, if you do think about negative thoughts and you do think of yourself a certain way for a long period of time, our brains are wired to stay in that consistency because that's what's comfortable.
Right.
And God experiences that consciousness with you. And so those points of oh my gosh, I did something bad today, that I'm a bad because I did something bad today. But God is telling you, you're not a bad person. Look at the mistake you made, or not a mistake, but look at what you did. You're a human being. You can. And I truly believe that since God experiences our consciousness with, it's easy for us to push away those lies that tell us, hey, you're not capable. That's stinky thinking, Doug was talking about. And the damage that you've had in life is just repetitive consciousness in your mind, repetitive thinking that used to be comfortable and now is no longer has any to grow. And you're realizing that, hey, that old thinking has no more room to grow anymore. Now it's time to regenerate it, refill it with positive thoughts. And God is going, awesome. We're both experiencing new, beautiful thoughts that are coming in. And so I can understand where those old thinking can be so comfortable, because our brain are wired and created like that. But our brains are also wired and created to think about new creations and thoughts.
Right. So Michael, good point. What we have to be careful of is that the wiring and the program that occurred, our brains for the first 7 years of our development are like a sponge, right? And there's a download, there's a program that comes in. So in other words, we're not wired to be a certain way. Like, okay, God's going to make you, wire you for happy, wire you for whatever. We're wired to receive love and relationship. Then everything else is a program that is downloaded from other people around us through our environment, through our parents, through our friends, and basically for the first 7 years. So that damaged self that actually is like your subconscious mind that operates in the background, and that is where your behaviors are being pulled from, because that's what you were taught, that's what you were downloaded as you were growing up the first 7 years. So what we have to do is rewire our brain. We have to become a new creation. We got to get rid of the old and bring in the new. But that's
you
where
But
it
it's
comes from.
but it's how we rewire our brains.
Okay.
Do we do it out of, hey, it's a necessity, or do we do it? I feel like, you know, to rewire your brain, you have to be able to want to do that.
That's right.
You know,
There's where the humility comes in.
right?
See,
You want to do it.
Okay, with that rewiring, this is what I was going to say to this. You didn't finish. On that day when I went in there, before I went in there, I said something changed me, and I know it was God, but it wasn't just God. It was it was at the 10 truths that day. The circumstance didn't matter.
Yes.
My state of being mattered when
Yes.
I walked into that building, and how I was going to respond or how I was going to act, and the way that I was trying to control the situation at first, but I was playing it out in my mind before I got there. But the whole bottom line of that day was just the circumstances did not matter. My state of being mattered when I went in there. And when I found with that, the rewiring for me has been in this group for the last over a year. I've been rewiring myself by, you know, reading and being in God and the faith and all of that. And it's hard because it's not something I'm used to, but it's something I really have to pick in my brain. Hey, you're rewiring this. Don't let that other one reconnect, because
There you
if the
go.
other one's still
Yes.
trying to reconnect,
Right.
like it says, this wire says, oh no, I belong here.
Yes.
You know, that one don't belong there. So that's where I was going with that.
No, that's good. And that reminds us of the discussions we've had before, where, you know, we have 50 years for me and some of us here, where these trees have developed, and trees are thought patterns that basically need to be cut down and literally rewire our brain, rewire the circuitry of our brain. And to your point, Lonnie, that you just made, you know, we got to change the signal. And the way we do that is we got to cut out those trees. We got to empty that jar of that stinky thinking, and then replace it with new ones. And the new ones is our true identity. And that's what we're talking about here, is what is our true identity? The heart of a hundredfold is identifying, the heart of a hundredfold is reminding us of our true identity. But we have a damaged self, and we have a facade self that doesn't allow that to come through. So the whole reason we're kind of going through this is understanding what's stopping us from agreeing with and allowing that new identity to come through. It's because of these things. So we need to make sure we're breaking through that shell, that outer shell, and getting that damaged self healed, because there is a healing process in order to get down to the real self of who we are.
I just wanted to share one quick story. When I was a, you know, hospice caregiver, I had this patient. She knew exactly that she had dementia, but sometimes she would forget. And I was talking to her one day, and I said, "Don't you ever get like really upset or frustrated that you have dementia?" And she says, "No." And I said, well, how? Why? And she says, "Because I'm just being me." And I didn't realize that until now. That was literally God saying, I'm just being me.
Yeah.
I'm just being my true self. Because anything outside of, if she was going, oh, why do I have dementia? My life is terrible and everything sucks. Wouldn't that be technically outside of who you are?
Yeah, that's right.
That separation from who you are on the inside, that separation, I realized that she was not separated. No matter what her condition was, she felt that she was not, that didn't separate her. And that's the one thing that I try to remind myself every day, that I'm not separated from love. I'm not. And that's where we end up being comfortable, is that we say, oh, we're separated from love, but we're never separated from love. It's our mind saying, no, I don't want that love. I want to reject that love because of how, you're right, because of how you were growing up and how your brain's been, you know, wired, getting out of that rewiring and saying, hey, I'm me.
Yep.
I'm love. God experiencing love with me, you know, and that's a beautiful thing. So
I think when we accept ourselves, we can accept others that love us too. More, you know, I don't know. That's just me, because I wasn't a person that you know what, I grew up not even knowing what true love was.
Right.
So
But how do we accept ourselves?
by loving ourselves too, you know.
And how do we love ourselves?
Taking care of ourselves.
communication.
Communication, loving God.
And how do we do that?
I don't know. I can tell you this. I took care of somebody for 18 years and then others before that. This is the first 2 years of my life I've ever taken care of myself. Really,
Right. But
really,
why are you doing that?
because I'm loving me. I'm knowing
Right.
what.
And
Hold
what
on.
motivates you to love
Let me-
yourself?
Happiness, feeling, happy feelings.
I want to live.
And what motivates the happy feelings?
I used to look at.
What motivates us to have that self-love?
I want to. I don't know.
And why do you want to?
Because I want to live.
And why do you want to live?
Because death was no fun. That's all I can really say to that. The death was no fun for me.
Where do we
Living
get
life
where do
and
we
being
get
happy.
where do we get our value?
God.
And how do we know that?
For me, I feel the love inside now.
And
I
how is that possible?
believe in it. That's the only thing I can do is believe.
And
So,
what do you believe in?
I believe God didn't put me down here to hate myself, belittle my own self, to make me feel disgusting, to make myself feel bad.
And
I
how
believe
did
that
he change your mind to that?
when he popped up on that Saturday and he said, "Hey, son, you've had enough of 50 years of this. Try something new."
And how else did he do that?
Showed me the way.
And
Um,
all right, guys. So
leading
sorry.
me. I can't get the answer.
I'm looking for a specific
know you
answer. The way we have the ability to change ourselves is allowing that crack to come through, the love and the truth. And the love truth is God demonstrated his own love for us in that while we were yet fallen mindset, while we were rebelling against God, God came and said, here, I'll show you how much I love you. And he did that through a man named Jesus, right? Who represented us, who represented God, 100% man, 100% God, and basically died to reveal that to us.
Basically, it's
So
letting
the
God
way I am now loving myself is not because I'm just trying to talk myself into it. It's because there is worth, there is value, there is a weightiness, there is a glory that God has given to me and says, this is how much I love you and this is how much you're worth, is I was willing to die to demonstrate that for you. And oh, by the way, I'm actually living in you, with you, through you, and I'm never going to leave you, never going to forsake you. So because of that, I now go, wow, if the God that created all of this, the universes, the galaxies, the Milky Way, all of that, loves me that much and basically says, hey, I'm living in you now and experiencing a life through you as you, there's a lot of worth. And then therefore I can love myself because the God that created all of this loves me that much. And then now, because I'm full of that, I can show that love to other people.
You know, I used to myself, man, I used to show love. I thought love was taking care of somebody else all the time, and doing for them. But I started to find out over the years that I was, you know, questions were asked to me by that person. Hey, do you think I'm taking you for granted? I'd be like, no, no. But then later on down the line, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I really do. And I should have answered that honestly that day. However, what I'm finding out is that it's me. In order for it to find that true love from somebody else, I got to love myself too.
There you go. That's right. Because you don't feel worthy enough.
Exactly.
Right. Yes. And then the facade that comes on the outside, and this is where the masks are, and we'll conclude with this. All right, we're going to stop on this point here. But the facade that we wear is, I'm not lovable enough. I don't love myself. So we build this hard shell on the outside. So as people want to love us, it bounces off the shell, right? Because of the facade. We're not allowing ourselves to be damaged because we've been hurt before. We've been open to love other people, and then they abuse that. They hurt us. Could be our parents. It could be our siblings. So we build this facade so that that truth, that love, it just bounces off, right? So
I just have one quick question before we hang up.
Yep.
So did Jesus die for the unseen? Because if you can look at it, people could say, well, Jesus died on the cross for our sins, but then why are people still hating on me for what I believe in and want to crucify me? Isn't that Jesus? He didn't just die for human physically. He died for all things, everything I believe that you can think of that has to do with living energy or love. I believe Jesus died for, because how else would us being 1,000 miles away from where Jesus was crucified, how are we able to know that happened if he didn't do it for the unseen?
Yeah, I would.
Because was it Jesus that physically died on the cross, or was it his spirit as well? That's all I just wanted to.
Well, the spirit can't die, right?
Yeah.
So there's a physical death, there's a flesh and blood death, but the spiritual death, it does say that Jesus basically set captives free. So
because wasn't there some people that didn't understand why Jesus was crucified? They saw that and was like, whatever, that's just a thief that was crucified. So didn't he have to show also the unseen,
right? So good point, Michael. So the way he did that, the way he accomplished that, is that the victory that was won occurred at his death and his burial. And then 3 days later, he rose from the grave. So the 3 days was in the unseen. He was accomplishing all of that, and then the invisible became visible when he resurrected, right? So when he came out of the grave, when he came out of the tomb, it's like, oh, he actually did it. He accomplished it. So he made the unseen seen through his resurrection. That's why the resurrection is so important, because he rose from the dead, and nobody's ever done that before.
So in the spiritual realm, and for those that believe in like spiritual realm, Jesus did talk about, there's something that is beyond us. Was he also dying for something that we experience when our physical body dies? Or is that something we just can't comprehend?
Well, he came to give us eternal life. That's a good question, Michael. I haven't been asked that one before, so I don't know the answer to that.
Well, just all clicked.
I do know that he made all things new, right? So
right.
Everything is back to the Garden of Eden, if you will, where and where that occurred was in our minds, right? Is that we now know that heaven is on earth and it's in us, and what pulled us out of that heaven on earth was our stinky thinking, was I'm not good enough, God is separated, he's up there somewhere, I'm down here. And what Jesus did is he brought those two together and says, no, you are one. So
he brought everlasting love and human beings together as one, instead of it was separated before.
So it was never separated. It was separated in our minds.
Right. That's what I mean.
Jesus brought that together and said, all this stuff that you were thinking, all this thousands of years of, the 10 Commandments and the flood and the Garden of Eden and all of that, it was you separated yourself from me. I did not separate from you.
Right.
Jesus brought the two together and said, you think you got it all together? No, this is the truth. When you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And we look at the life that Jesus demonstrated, and it was that of unconditional love. You think about the prostitute caught in adultery. You think about the woman at the well. You think about the blind man that was born blind. The tax collectors and sinners, Matthew, the tax collector. There was no judgment. There was just, hey, follow me. Come follow me. You don't have to do anything. Just follow me. And he opened up a whole new life for every one of them. So he was the connector. He was the reflector of who God was, and basically demonstrated.
So he connected our holy place, which is our mind, to our heart.
Yes. Yeah, you could say
Because
that.
that's what, because we're never separated in our minds, but we can believe we're separated.
That's right. You got it. You got it. And the reason is because of all of this stuff, right? The damaged self, and the upbringing that we had, and religion, us listening to the religion and other people's views of ourselves rather than listening to our true self. All right, guys. So we're at about an hour here. So I think I've got like probably 12 more slides to go. So we've got a lot more discussion, but really good discussion this morning. I appreciate your each one of your time. So I'm just going to flip through. Yeah, see all these slides you still have to go through. But this week, just continue to remind yourself about your true identity. I do have a study called 21 Days of Identity. So if you want to start getting into this now, you can go on to our website at hundredfoldjourney.com. And again, we're talking about 30, 60, and 100-fold, and the different ways we look at it. 100-fold is, that facade, the damaged self is being healed. And that facade is basically broken, right? So we're not putting forth a facade. Jesus did not have a facade. Everybody knew who he was and why he was. And what we're doing is we're choosing to believe what God believes about me. I'm holy, blameless. There's nothing I need to do. Perfect love casts out all fear. And that comes by way of rest. What stops us from experiencing that is what we're talking about now, is that facade and that damaged self, and how we break through that. Okay, so that's the whole purpose behind all of this. But is God really that good? The way you answer that determines your yield. Please continue to work on the 10 truths. Again, hundredfoldjourney.com. You can go on and find tons of resources, including the 21 Days of Identity. And then, of course, you can always join us on Facebook. All right, so I know I kind of brought that to a close here at the end. Sorry for kind of rushing that through, but we're going a little bit long. But guys, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate all the comments and really good feedback. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. That's it for now. Have a good week.
All right, y'all too.
All right, take care now.
All right. Bye-bye.